Welcome to PixelTunesRadio,
a podcast where we have fun
talking about video games
and video game music.
I'm Mike.
And I'm Justin.
And this is episode 104, Wario! We're going to be talking about Wario, the Mario character from the Mario universe, the evil Mario, I guess you could say. We're going to get into that in just a little bit. You know, the disgusting, gross, vile, terrible human being or character, if you will, that Wario is. But today we have a guest co-host, and his name is Justin. He is a buddy of mine, so say hello, Justin.
Hello.
So, Justin, we're going to ask you 3 quick questions, just basically to introduce you to everybody. And actually, one of the questions, which won't count, is how do you know me? How do you fit into all this?
You want the PG version or the... No. So I know you through a couple of friends. Eric, who I think has been... I know he's been on your YouTube channel. I don't know if...
he's never been on the podcast. Yep. No.
Eric and Sean, we used to party together at Sean's house.
Pretty much, yeah. So Justin and I got to talking, and we were hanging out years and years ago, probably back in like 2006, 2007. And Justin and I kind of hit it off. We're big fans of video games and video game music, and so when I thought about somebody that would be a good guest host to kind of temporarily replace Ed, I thought Justin would be a great pick, and he actually offered his services, and Justin can tell you a little bit more about him himself through these 3 questions that we're going to be asking him, just to get a little snapshot of who he is, and so that way you kind of have an idea of who we're working with today. So the first question to Justin is, what is your first video game soundtrack that you fell in love with?
First soundtrack that I fell in love with would probably be... it would have to be the first soundtrack that I actually bought when I was in high school. The soundtrack to Final Fantasy VIII, particularly because I play a number of instruments, and the main one that I played at the time was piano, and there were a number of piano pieces in that game. So I ended up buying both the piano score to play with and the actual soundtrack, which I think was like 4 discs.
Wow, way cool. What is your favorite type of music or types?
Types would probably be rock, classic rock. I grew up on a lot of classic rock. I'm big into Queen, Styx, and all that.
Cool.
And orchestral. I own a lot of orchestral versions of video game music because it's I love the beeps and bloops of the video game music, but when a live orchestra brings it to life, it's something else.
Gives it a different meaning, gives it a different feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. And how long have you been playing video games?
I cannot recall. Life. Yeah, no, I mean that's pretty much the truth. I can't remember how old I was when I first played a video game. I do know that I was very young. It was before my brother was born, so it was before I was 7. And my father owned an Intellivision.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
I learned on probably one of the most complicated controllers in the world with the dial thing and the 9 or 8, 11 buttons or whatever it was.
Okay, yep.
Good system, though.
Yeah. So some of you may slightly recognize Justin's voice. He was actually one of the people in the commercial that we did for the Final Fantasy episode that we did for Pixel Tunes. It was him and his now wife, Ariel, who helped us with voicing characters. We had Todd on that episode as well. There was just so many characters that we wanted to kind of showcase, and so Justin and Ariel helped us out with that. So his voice may sound a little bit familiar to some of you. We're going to go ahead and jump into PixelChat questions real quick. So our first question to us comes from Chris Murray, and he asks, favorite Wario role including cameos? Also, who does a better impression between you guys? So, Justin, you're our guest of honor. Oh. Go first.
I would say my favorite Wario role is the various tennis games that he's been in. I think there's 9 of them, or 6 official ones, and I forget how they break them out. But for as terrible a character as he is, I love his unsportsmanlike conduct in those games. I mean, he's unsportsmanlike in everything. I've never played him in the Strikers games, but he's such a jerk.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Yeah, it's always funny playing any of those games, especially like Mario Golf or Mario Tennis. He's just so rotten, I guess you could say. First exposure to Wario. What was your first game that you ever played with Wario in it?
I don't know. It was either one of the Warioware games or Super Smash Brothers. Was he in Brawl?
He was in Brawl. He was not in Melee. He was a palette swap in Melee.
Okay, then it would have either been Brawl or one of the Wariowares that one of my friends had, and I was like, what the hell is this?
I think I played the very first game that he was ever in, which was Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins. He was the antagonist in that game. And I think I got to Wario, and I was kind of like, huh, okay. But we'll get into first exposures, and we'll get into a little bit more of that as we go on with the podcast, because I have a funny story to tell about Wario and everything, as far as at least my personal experience. So I don't want to give too much away. Who does a better impression between you guys? I don't know. Well, I think I love doing voices and like character voices and stuff like that. So, but I will say that Wario's voice is very hard to do in long bursts.
Yeah,
you'll be hearing a commercial with a little bit later with me as Wario, and it was very hard to keep that, wahaha, have a rotten day. Like it's very difficult. It's a very difficult voice to do.
Sustained, yeah,
right.
Definitely. It's not too hard to do initially, but I think due to the gruffness and trying to keep that at a prolonged time, makes it a little bit hard.
Yeah, it's a little tinny too. Like in the, he goes like, ow, like he has this like it's a weird like up and down kind of sound to his voice. But we can attest to the wonderful Charles Martinet. His voice acting is incredible. So, Matt Crawford asks if you could add Wario to any game, keeping all his characteristics no matter what the context, which game would it be? Justin?
I thought about this one for a little while, actually, because, would I add him to, like, just to be silly, add him to, like, one of the Final Fantasy games where, like, he doesn't make any sense. And I feel like most games, it turns out to be like that. Mm-hmm. But as I was going over some of the odd games that I've played, I thought of Boogerman on the Genesis. And I feel like he's right at home there. Like, he's gross. He fits right in.
Yeah.
He could be Boogerman.
He could. That's true. I would say Earthworm Jim. Kind of sticking with that same vibe. I'm kind of playing it safe here. But I really feel like if I was to put Wario in another game, I feel like he would fit right at home with Earthworm Jim. He has that, sarcastic, snarky persona that would kind of mirror Earthworm Jim's kind of like gullible goofiness. So I think it would work well.
I can see that. Both Genesis games, too.
Yeah, right? What's the next question that we have for PixelChat?
So Keyglyph, a.k.a. Emily, asks, who's the Wario and who's the Waluigi in this PixelTunes situation? Use any criteria in making your case.
I will say, for our normal host, Ed, he is definitely... I would say he's the Waluigi.
I can see that.
I feel like he's more like I don't know. I kind of feel like Wario's the more childish of the two, whereas like Waluigi is more like the stricter kind of like more adult-ish Wario, I guess you could say. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because he's taller. I don't know.
I think that's a big part of it. It's the lankiness and the tallness.
Yeah. So, but as far as us, I don't know. I would probably say I'm still the Wario.
I'd probably agree. I don't know that I could really pin Wario or Waluigi on one of us. I feel like we both sort of fit into more of a Wario thing, but it depends on, again, like, use any criteria.
Sure.
I mean, the criteria that I immediately think of is physique, and you and I have very similar physique. Not that we're like short and fat like Wario.
Right,
we're about the same height.
Right.
So
True.
It's like Waluigi is way taller.
Right.
And super lanky.
Super lanky. Yeah.
That's the first thing I think of.
I think our previous co-host from last episode, the John Baker episode, Brian would make a great Waluigi.
100%.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what I would say for that. And how about our last question today?
Alex Messenger asks, what's your opinion on the fan theory that Wario and Waluigi are not brothers, but actually lovers?
The internet is a fantastic, weird place. It's been confirmed that Wario and Waluigi are just friends. They're just friends who like hanging out together. They're not brothers, they're not lovers, they're not cousins. I always thought they were cousins.
I can see that.
And that would kind of make sense to me.
I think the official phrasing is they're two weirdos who like to hang out together.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I'm in that same boat with you. I mean, everybody has their own what's called headcanon, and and you are absolutely welcome to that. I do not think of Wario and Waluigi in any type of a sexual way, so I wouldn't really go there. They also are beyond odd couple status as far as I'm concerned. So I really I personally cannot entertain that sort of dynamic.
Yeah.
But I mean, if that's something that you believe, by all means, I will not squash that. But that is not my personal belief.
I'm all for celebrating fan service, but I think that fan service is just a little out there for me personally. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Wario today, just a little bit. Wario was created by Hiroji Kiyotake in 1992, and his name is a portmanteau of the word bad in Japan, which is Waruai, and Mario, so Wario. He was chosen as the leader for the Warioware series because he often, quote-unquote, acted silly. And official lore suggests that Wario was a childhood friend of Mario and Luigi, and he was jealous of how successful they became. We'll talk a little bit about that a little later in the episode. Wario has a very similar pairing to Mario and Luigi, similar to like Mario is Wario, Luigi is Waluigi. These two are not brothers like the Mario brothers, and are instead considered, as we said, two weirdos who like to hang out together. So they definitely, I don't know. Let me ask you this: what do you think would be the female equivalent of like the princess situation that Mario and Luigi have? Because like Mario has like
a Wah Peach.
Yeah, like a Wah Peach or a Wah Daisy. Yeah, because Mario has his female lover in the night, whatever you want to call it, is Princess Peach or Princess Toadstool. Yeah. Whatever you want to call her, and then. I always paired Luigi with Daisy.
Yeah. Same.
You know what I mean? So there's no Wah equivalent of... I would have thought that they would come up with something by now.
Now that you mention it, I'm actually really surprised at this point that they haven't.
Yeah.
Like, when they introduced Waluigi, was that in one of the Mario Karts or was that in one of the tennis games? It was definitely a sports game that they introduced him in.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the sports games.
But like that was... I want to say that was the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And it's been a while now, and I'm just very surprised that there isn't like a Wah Peach or Waich or
Wazy? Wazy.
Or a Wazy. It makes a lot of sense, and considering the games that they've given him, I mean, yesterday and earlier today we were playing some of the Wario Land games and Wario World, and it's interesting that he doesn't have his own like love interest, and maybe that's where this Wario and Waluigi are lovers headcanon thing comes from.
Possibly.
But
there's also Captain Syrup, who we'll get into a little later, but all really good points. So let's jump into our first track. This is Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins for the Game Boy in 1992, and this is Wario Castle, and it's by Kazumi Tataka. Alright, welcome back. That was Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins on the Game Boy, the 1992 release. That was Wario's Castle, or Wario Castle, by Kazumi Tataka. Most of you have probably remember us discussing him on previous episodes. Kazumi Tataka, very infamous for Tataka's Song. Have you ever heard of Tataka's Song?
No.
No? Tataka's Song is a 19-note tune hidden in almost every game that he's ever written music for. It's this little ditty. You've probably heard it in like Mario Paint.
Yeah.
It was in Mario Paint. It was in a bunch of the Animal Forest games, Animal Crossing, or whatever it's called. Yeah. And Luigi's Mansion. Let me see if I can remember. It goes like do 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 or something like that. So that's That's Tataka's song. You probably heard it. It's pretty famous.
It does sound familiar.
Yeah.
I have played many of those games that you mentioned.
Yeah.
In some form or another.
So I'm sure you've heard it at one point or another. So Kazumi Tataka started off in 1992 with the game X, which was that Star Fox predecessor that Argonaut Games, I believe, was working on. His follow-up game was Super Mario Land 2, 6 Golden Coins, as well as Mario Paint. He worked on that. Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening, Mario Tennis, Super Smash Bros. In 1999, he was a voice actor on Luigi's Mansion, Animal Crossing, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. He did character voices. He does a lot of voices, actually, believe it or not, for games. Mario Hoops 3 on 3. His latest game that he's come out with was Mario Kart 8 Deluxe this latest year. So he is by far like a true, tried and true Nintendo guy when it comes to music.
Yeah, wow. Busy.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. So Mario Land 2, did you have this one growing up, or?
So interestingly, Mario Land 2 I've played, but it was not like I mentioned. I think my first Wario related game was one of the Wariowares.
Right.
I played Mario Land 2 later, although I'd never beaten it and never actually got to Wario. But it was an interesting game. I mean, I was a fan of the original Mario Land on the Game Boy, mostly because it bucked a lot of my expectations. Like, I came from Super Mario World 1 and 2 and all that. I mean, even 2 is weird, but
yeah.
I mean, I pick up a Game Boy and I play this game, and all of a sudden the turtles are exploding, and I was very confused.
Yeah.
So the Mario Land 2 was definitely a different take on a Mario adventure that I thought was really cool. I wish I had actually gotten all the way through it.
Yeah, I hear you. It's a longer game than you would think for a Mario adventure, but it has more in common, I would say, with like Mario 3 or Mario World than Mario Land. Mario Land is just, I don't know, it's a very weird, obscure game that is not really tied to any other Marios. It's more in common with like the very first Mario, I would say, for like the Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, yes.
That's probably the closest that it gets. It's a strange one, definitely. But Mario Land 2 kind of picks up in a different place, and it feels more like a proper Mario sequel. Even Mario Sprite did a significant change visually compared to the first Mario Land game.
And a lot of the mechanics, too, changed over. Like I said, the turtles exploding in the first one threw me for a loop, and then in this one, you can actually jump on the turtles and they'll go.
Yep.
So,
or like crush the Goombas or the enemies, right?
Exactly.
So what do you think of this track?
The track is really cool.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there, particularly sort of in the middle when the drums kick in and the tone sort of changes. It sort of drives the entire track forward. I would say the two things that I like most about that track are the little drum solo towards the end.
Yeah, like the fills, right?
Yeah, the drum fills.
Yeah.
This is one part I might have to go back and re-listen to it, but it's very reminiscent to the track Velt from Final Fantasy VI.
Okay.
Where it kind of goes doo 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 doo.
Yeah.
I mean, when I hear that, it brings me back to that game,
right?
Which I have a lot of love for.
Mm-hmm. There's a very like strong driving bass tone to this track, the do 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 do, and then when like those like evil tones kind of come in. It's the only word I have for it is evil tones, which you're probably going to hear quite a bit of in this episode. The part that's like da 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 da, it's like almost like spy-ish.
Yep.
And you do get a lot of vibes from other Wario games for that, like this evil kind of sinister tone to it, but also very kind of playful, very like undercover secret agent kind of stuff. It's very weird, very, very different from what we've experienced with other Mario songs, especially if you compare it with the rest of the soundtrack, which all fits to a single motif with that
a lot of the Mario Land 2 soundtrack it sounds very much like Mario, and that song in particular, it's somewhat reminiscent of like a Bowser's Castle, but it's different enough that it's noticeable. And one of the things, like what you're picking up on, like you call like the evil sounds. It's sort of a really, really good use of a minor key,
right?
And that's used in a lot of music to get that same sort of feeling. Like it makes people uncomfortable, particularly if you do like you take a normal song,
right,
that's in a major key, and you put it in a minor key, and people were doing this with Christmas songs last year, and I remember it sounded really eerie. But that is really the best way to sort of take something and make you know that something's wrong.
Something is happening.
Yeah.
Right.
One thing that I will sort of point out is there's a melody that's in a lot of the other, maybe not a lot, but a good number of the other songs that we're going to play. That's sort of like the Wario song or the Wario melody that I've noticed. That's not in there, or at least I did not notice it. But it was just an interesting thing that I'm surprised that they didn't pull on.
Right. Yeah, I think that overall you're going to be pretty surprised by a lot of these tracks. They're kind of all over the place, but weird is definitely a word that we're going to be repeating quite a bit, I think. So the whole point of Mario Land 2 is Mario is essentially trying to get these 6 golden coins. Mario was away in a place called Sarasara Land, or Sarasa Land? I always called it Sarasara Land when I was growing up. It's actually Sarasa Land.
Oh, yeah.
But I always, as a kid, called it Sarasara Land. So his old buddy, or he used to be a buddy, Wario, puts a spell over Mario's castle, and at that point, the whole land kind of gets turned into these zombies, mentally speaking, where they believe that Wario is like their lord and master and that Mario is the bad guy, actually. So Wario wants to do this because he has a desire to have his own palace. So Mario has to go through these different worlds and get these 6 different golden coins, so that way he can regain entry to his own castle. So Wario essentially takes over Mario's castle.
Yeah.
Right. Mario goes, he defeats Wario. Wario leaves, he takes off, and he breaks the spell, and therefore Mario's castle kind of changes back to its original status of being, under control of Mario. Right. So interesting.
Yeah.
Very weird, but we're just getting started with the weirdness. So our next game is Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, and that's the 1992 follow-up to Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. This one also came out in 1992 for the Game Boy, and the track is called Ending. Alright, welcome back. That was Super Mario Land 3 Wario Land. Or Wario Land. Super Mario Land 3. Yes, I realized I screwed it up. 1992 is the year of release on the Game Boy. That was the ending track, and that was by Kozue Ishikawa and Ryoji Yoshitomi. So, what do you think of this one? You were saying during the break there was a lot more to it.
Yeah, so I mean, when you listen to the music from Super Mario Land 2 and then Super Mario Land 3, I mean, in almost any game series like that, especially on the same system, there's like a progression because they realize they can do more with it, and you can definitely hear it in that one because Super Mario Land 2, there's less sort of like instruments, I guess, going on at the same time, and in this one it feels like there are more. Even if there aren't, they've been able to sort of make it so that it feels like there's more going on. It's also a lot more whimsical.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure if that would end up being the most whimsical song on this playlist, but it felt way more whimsical. It actually kind of didn't really feel to me like a Wario song.
This felt more like a Mario song.
Almost.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Somewhere in between, I think.
Yeah, I mean the cadence of the notes, and also I would say the instrumentation that they chose to use is very reminiscent of like the Mario Land games.
Yes.
The very first Mario Land game, or even like the Mario Land 2 tracks that aren't involving Wario.
Yeah.
So I would say they're more in line with that sound to it. It's a lot more bouncier, a little bit happier sounding, and that's what I would say. But I dig the track. I think it's a standard ending track to a Nintendo game. Like, you could hear this song and immediately recognize this is from a Nintendo game, isn't it? And the other person's
Absolutely,
like, yeah, obviously. So Wario Land is the first game in the Wario Land series, Wario Land Super Mario Land 3, and it came out in 1994. So that was a instant clarification corner right there. It's not 1992. So the game came out only on the Game Boy. This was not really a late release for the Game Boy. It's kind of like a middle of the road, I guess you could say. The Game Boy came out in like 89. So this was kind of, I mean, the Game Boy lasted forever. So it definitely took a while for the Game Boy to kind of evolve. And we'll talk a little bit about that with the next track. But this game is about Wario essentially gets his own castle, one that's even way bigger and way better than Mario's castle. Of course, he has to.
Well, yeah.
And in order to do that, he goes to a place called Kitchen Island, where he meets the Brown Sugar Pirates. And they've hidden like tons of treasure and coins and all sorts of stuff that they can get, including a golden statue of Princess Toadstool, which they stole from the Mushroom Kingdom. So Wario wants to steal this statue and then sell it back to Mario for the price of a castle. So he wants to basically build another castle,
right, or
use that money. And he's so greedy. I mean, that's just how Wario is. He's a very greedy character.
Sort of what makes him interesting.
Yeah.
This is also the first Wario-related game where you play as Wario, right?
Right. Yeah, this is the first one. So after you kind of explore that island, you infiltrate the castle, Syrup Castle, and Wario confronts the leader, who is actually a female villain for a change in a Mario series game, and she's her name is Captain Syrup, and she's a female pirate, if you will. So she summons a genie to take out Wario, but he defeats the genie. And then at that point in time, Syrup destroys the castle and she leaves. She pieces out. So that's pretty much it. And that's when you find out about the giant Princess Toadstool statue. Yeah. But that's pretty much the game. This game, it plays like Mario Land 2, except you're Wario.
Right.
That's pretty much what it is.
Which, I mean, that's one of the
other
things.
Not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, not at all. I played this with you yesterday, actually,
yep.
And it was very interesting to play because most of the Wario games, if not all of them, subtracting this, are puzzle games, and this is a 2D platformer, which is just in line. Like it's obvious they came off of the Mario track with the action platforming or adventure platforming, and we're literally continuing along that same vein. And I thought it worked pretty well.
Yeah.
the power, like just like with Mario, you have if you get hit, you shrink, assuming you have a power.
And he looks so ridiculous too. Like when he gets hit, he has like a mohawk. Yeah, he's got like his head shrinks and he's so little tiny and cute. Yeah, so you get all these different like helmet power-ups. So you can get like a dragon that shoots like fire. You can get like
the bullhorns.
Yeah, the bullhorns, which do like more damage when you jump and burst, boxes open. You do get coins in this game, but coins are different in Wario games than they are in Mario games. In Mario games, you use them to get like extra lives and just to rack up score and stuff like that. Whereas
he has hearts, I think, for lives.
Yeah, right? He has hearts for lives, and the coins are used instead to buy. Like you can use them as currency. You can do like different mini games at the end where you can get you pull the lever and like.
Yes.
Yeah, you pull the lever and then you can get either a treasure sack falls on your head or a
weight.
Like a weight falls on your head, right? So yeah,
the other thing the coins did in this game is they changed the ending based on what you have as far as coins coins go.
Yeah.
Wario ends up with a different sized house. Like if you don't get a whole lot of coins, I think he ends up with like a bird house. If you get all the coins in the game, you own the planet.
That's funny. So that is Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3. It's a pretty neat game. I recommend picking it up. Most of these games in the Wario series, which it's kind of nice, they're all fairly inexpensive. Most of them you can get for under $20, if not less. Probably under 15, I'd say, at the absolute least. So definitely recommend picking up all these games that we're going to be talking about today. Regarding the composers, Kozue Ishikawa worked on a couple games. Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3 was his first. Then worked on Earthbound to Sound Staff in '94. Wario Land 2, he did sound design on Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening DX. He did sound composition. Wario Land 3 in 2000, he did sound design. Mario Tennis in 2000, and then I Want to Be the Boshi. He's credited for Wario Land's music. So,
what is I Want to Be the Boshi?
I Want to Be the Boshi is inspired by I Want to Be the Guy. It's kind of like a platform game, but it's like trap based. Kind of like Insane Mega Man, basically.
Got it.
Ryoji Yoshitomi is the other composer. So Metroid 2 Return of Samus, they were sound programmer on in 1991. They did sound staff work on Mario Paint, Mario Clash. Wario Land 4 did the music on that. Warioware, pretty much all the, a good chunk of Warioware games. Mario Tennis, Star Fox Zero, Star Fox Guard, they were sound support. The final game was ARMS in 2017. They were also credited as sound support on the Switch game, ARMS. So.
Oh, yes, the
one where you got wacky arms and you're throwing them.
Wacky,
yes.
inflatable, flailing arm 2 man.
Yes.
Also did sound support for a couple of the Star Fox games that came out.
Yep.
2016.
Yes. So, Wario Land is not done. We're going to take a bit of a break from Wario Land. We're going to move into our next game. What do we got next?
So next up, we're going to hear Round Clear from Wario's Woods, which was a Nintendo or an NES game from 1994. The composers on this are Shinobu Amayake and Soyo Oka.
All right, let's hit it.
Welcome back. That was Round Clear from Wario's Woods on the NES in 1994, composed by Shinobu Amayake and Soyo Oka. What are your thoughts on this, Mike?
I really love this one. It's super bouncy, super happy, and I love I love how much it changes in such a short loop as well. I mean, you've got this kind of almost like music box kind of sound to it in the beginning, like da 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 da. It's so like soft and cheery and happy, and then it kind of rolls into this like more serious. It sounds like it's really gonna pick up. It's got this like do 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 do, like almost like a bouncy kind of bass line that's going on, and the music has this like these very like melodic kind of synths that come in, the da na na. They kind of like breathe like a weight to it that wasn't present throughout the entire track. But then I want it to spread its wings and soar, and it never does, and that always bums me out. So then it hits the loop, and I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, I mean,
but then I'm like, do, 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 do. I don't know. I love this one. What do you think about it?
It is. It's really cute. I get what you're saying about wanting it to sort of like spread its wings.
Yeah.
Although it was obviously intended to be a short loop, but I mean, they called it round clear, which means they don't really even expect you to listen to it much. They're like, they're gonna smash the button to get to the next level.
Right. Yeah.
But it's. I think I used this word describing the last song too, but it's kind of whimsical.
Yeah.
I mean, the game itself is whimsical. I mean, you're playing as like Toad trying to prevent Wario from taking over the woods.
Right.
But yeah, it's got like the undertones that you're talking about, that cute little bass line that keeps it going, and then just as you think it's about to like take off, it loops.
Yeah, it's got a nice cadence to it. It's really bouncy, really fun. Interesting tidbit about this game: it was the final NES release that came out, like official release that came out on the NES. So this game released in North America in December of 1994 and in Europe in 1995. I mean, by that point, the Super NES was already full on in its life cycle. So.
Wasn't this a dual release? Did this go on SNES and NES?
It was, yes. It was on Super NES as well. The design was a little different, but it was for the most part the same game. I will say the graphics on the NES version are a lot muddier. There's just, I don't know.
Than the SNES version?
Yeah, the SNES version is a lot cleaner looking. The sprites are more colorful. This one, I don't know, it looks like visually like somebody else developed it. It was developed by Nintendo R&D 1, which they've, worked on tons of Nintendo games before, tons of Mario games and all sorts of different stuff. But like, I don't know what it is, but like, for some odd reason, this game just visually doesn't look like your standard typical like Mario game. It almost looks like a third party handled it, which they didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, that's fair, especially with some of the sprites that they use. The very first thing that I noticed about the game when we booted it up was that it looked, on the NES in particular, it looks really clean for an NES game.
Oh, I agree. The title screen is really clean.
I was actually kind of surprised by that. And then, once you said it was the last game to be released on the NES, that made a lot more sense because they've had literally all this time to perfect the way things look. I mean, some of the sprites, there are some things that look like Kirby in different colors. I mean, I wouldn't say it's all over the place, but it doesn't. You're right. It does not look exactly like a traditional Nintendo developed game, and I think that's partly because of what it is. I mean, it's not that they've only ever really done Mario games. Obviously, they did Dr. Mario, which is very similar in many ways to this. It's a sort of like Tetris-ish puzzle game where things are falling from the top, and you're trying to clear lines of stuff. But yeah, the sprites look a little non-Nintendo-y. Yeah,
no, I agree. The name Wario's Woods, I've read somewhere that it's a real place. Like, there's a real place somewhere in the world called Wario's Woods.
Really?
Yeah, oh man, I tried so hard to try to find some information on this. Maybe somebody who's listening knows what I'm talking about. Supposedly there was a real place called Mario's Woods, or Wario Woods. And I tried to find some information on it, but I was unable to find it. But I definitely remember a couple years back reading an article somewhere that was talking about it. And maybe it was like one of those like fake articles, like, The Onion or something like that. But I swear, for real, like legit, I read it and was like, so that's where they got the inspiration for Wario's Woods. I don't know.
If you know what Mike's talking about, post about it in the Facebook channel.
Yeah, please. Please help me restore my sanity. Yeah, so Wario's Woods is a puzzle game. You play as Toad, as Justin was saying, and you're essentially taking these little like monster type woodland creature characters and kind of stacking them, and they can go diagonal, they can go side to side or top to bottom. There needs to be 3 of them essentially in order for you to blow them up with bombs, which sounds a lot more terrible than it is. It's actually very kid friendly. And what's weird is that Birdo is in this game as well. He.
I believe Birdo identifies as female.
Okay. So Birdo, she is up in the top right corner, just kind of silently judging you, and then all of a sudden, randomly, you'll have Wario pop up and be like, "Wah!" and he'll start making the screen lower, and then you've got to kind of go about it a little bit quicker. The mechanics are a little difficult. It takes some getting used to initially when you're playing through the game, but we had a lot of fun playing through it.
Yeah, it was pretty neat.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Apparently, I'm just taking a look at some things. Birdo is on your side. Birdo is encouraging Toad, and that encouragement is in the form of bombs to help you destroy the monsters.
I do not see that. Birdo is silently judging us. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any screen cap from it, yeah, you're absolutely right. It looks like Birdo's like she's got one hand on her cheek. She's just like, when are you going to be done?
Right. Do you think that like Wario or do you think that like Toad and Birdo date or something? Like, when are you gonna be done with this game? Like, I thought you were gonna take me shopping.
Come home. I want to watch Netflix and then possibly chill.
Maybe, possibly, if you play your cards right, Mr. Toad. So yeah, that's what Wario Woods is all about. That's it. I'm gonna go take a cold shower. Shinobu Amayake did the soundtrack for this, as well as Soyo Oka. Both of them were credited to this one. There is apparently a different soundtrack or a different conversion of the soundtrack for the Super NES version, which I haven't heard that version of it. I really wanted to play a track from this NES version just because it is the last NES game, and I felt the Super NES, I was like, But both of these composers are female. Soyo Oka, she did work on Famicom Grand Prix 2 3D Hot Rally in 1988. Moved on to Pilot Wings for Nintendo in 1990, Mario Kart in 92, and Mario All-Stars in 93. She did the arrangement of the original Koji Kondo soundtracks. And then Wario's
good
Woods.
Arrangements.
Yeah, definitely. Wario's Woods in 94, and then again, I Want to Be the Boshi in 2010, sensing a theme there.
Yeah.
And then Shinobu Amayake. And then Shinobu Amayake, she's a composer who also joined Nintendo in 1990. She doesn't have as many credits to her name. Pretty much in 91, she started with NES Open Tournament Golf in 1991. However, only the Japanese version.
Yep.
Right. Wario's Woods in 94, Stunt Race FX in 94, and then Pokemon Ranger Shadows of Almia in 2008.
That's a gap?
Yeah,
Wow.
Pretty big gap. And then poof, she turned into a Kunoichi and disappeared into the abyss. So that is her story. So let's move on from one puzzle game to another. Our next game is Wario Blast, featuring Bomberman, the 1994 release on the Game Boy. This was World 3, and it's by Yasuhiko Fukuda.
That was World 3 from Wario Blast featuring Bomberman, the 1994 Game Boy game composed by Yasuhiko Fukuda.
What do you think of this one?
Definitely sounds like a Bomberman song.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's just like the sort of the driving fast pace of it.
Yep.
Like right off the bat, I would say that it sounds like it came out of a Bomberman game.
Short loops,
Yep.
very repetitive, but also has that whimsical Nintendo feel to it.
Yep.
It also had that kind of bouncy, I want to say like ragtimey kind of sound.
Yeah,
you know?
I'd agree with that assessment.
Yeah, that's what I picked up on. Not much to say about the track itself, other than that it's got a good groove to it. It's got a nice bounce.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good for those kind of games, like the Bomberman games.
Yeah.
I find that the music behind them is often one that makes me want to keep playing, which is generally the point of a lot of the music in the older games. Like, they want you to keep playing, so they make the music like that.
Yeah, very repetitive, very catchy. I feel like you could probably put the lyrics to "This is the song that never ends" in the background. You know,
That's probably true. I
probably
mean, considering the way that it loops, it definitely works.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, actually, how they combined Bomberman and Wario, because Bomberman was Hudson Soft, right?
Right. So Bomberman, this was developed by Hudson Soft.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is essentially a Bomberman game with co-starring Wario, I guess you could say. The way that the plot goes is Wario wakes up he stumbles into Bomberman's location. He tries to break in and steal whatever he can find, essentially. Of course, because it's Wario.
Yep.
The only person who kind of stands in his way of doing that, is completing that task, is Bomberman. Yeah. So the whole point of the game is it's pretty much a Bomberman game. You're going through trying to blow up enemies. It's stage based, so it is an overhead perspective, just like pretty much every other Bomberman game. You can blow up the different rocks and different parts of the level to find different power ups that can help you with advancing throughout the level. That's pretty much it. It's pretty standard. There was the ability to do enhanced play, where you could pop this game in your Super Game Boy, and you can
4-player simultaneous.
Yeah. It's pretty neat. It also uses a password system, so that way you could save your progress. So pretty nifty. Not much to talk about with it. It's a pretty simple puzzle game. I personally liked Wario's Woods a little better than Wario Blast.
Yeah.
It's not that Wario Blast is bad. It's just, I don't know. To me, Bomberman games are a dime a dozen. They're not bad. The music's always fantastic, but it's not something I would regularly play unless to me, it's very similar to a lot of fighting games, like King of Fighters, for example. I don't need to own every King of Fighters because it's kind of like the same game every time. So I kind of will buy the latest and greatest one and play that, and then when that one goes out and then they're like, there's a new one, I'll buy the new one and get rid of it. It's kind of like Madden in that sense, in a way.
Yeah.
So it's kind of similar with Bomberman. It's like once you played one Bomberman, you've played them all.
That's fair. I enjoy the Bomberman games mostly for the multiplayer. I don't know anybody who plays them single player, which is one of the things that's interesting about this is it was on the Game Boy and it was a single player game unless you had the Super Game Boy.
Right.
I'm somewhat surprised, although maybe it would have been more complicated to do. But I'm somewhat surprised they didn't make this like a link cable game. Where you could play against against a friend or something.
That's true.
I also do find it pretty funny that it like you said, it's basically a Bomberman game featuring Wario, but because Wario is who he is, it's a Wario game featuring Bomberman.
Right, exactly. And what's cool about this, I'm almost going to bet or guarantee that this hooks up to, or they wanted the intention of you using the Super Bomberman or Super Bomberman 2 adapter that came with the super big giant box version of the game, the Super Bomberman. It came with an adapter, like a multi-tap adapter that was made by Hudson, or developed or created. It's basically like an official or I don't know. I think it's official, but I could be wrong about that. But I believe it's made by Hudson Soft, and it's got the little B logo on it, the Hudson Soft B. And it's an adapter that you can plug in up to 4 controllers, and you can play, multiplayer games with it.
Cool.
On the Super NES. So I'm gonna bet that they chose to use that with this.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So Yasuhiko Fukuda worked on mostly Bomberman stuff. The first game was Tantei Jinguji Saburo Kiken na Futari in 1988. Was a music composer on that. Download in 1990, Atomic Punk in 1990, Smart Ball in 91, Super Bomberman 2, which we just talked about, Emerald Dragon in 1994, Bomberman Game Boy in 1994, and did some other Bomberman games like Super Bomberman 5 in 97, Bomberman Game Boy 3 in 1996, Super Bomberman 4 in 1996 was the arranger on that one. The last game that they worked on was Poppin' Music 2 in 1999, where they were the music composer for that.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty big history with simple, catchy, easygoing tracks. So next, our tracks move back to Wario Land, but not in a place that you may be familiar with. This is the Virtual Boy Wario Land game, and this came out on the Virtual Boy in 1995. This is the credits track, and it's by, again, Kazumi Tataka. Alright, welcome back. That was Virtual Boy Wario Land, the Virtual Boy 1995 release. That track was the credits theme, and that was by Kazumi Tataka. What do you think?
So that's, I think, the first song that we've listened to here that has the what I'd referred to earlier as the Wario theme.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm right or not about that, I don't care. In my mind, that's the Wario
that's
theme.
It. Lock it down, people. Yep.
You hear that in a lot of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
But considering the console that this game was released on, This was a really good song. The other songs, I'm not. If you've listened to any of the other tracks from this game, they're not terrible by any means.
Sure.
There's a lot of it's done in the minor key, so there's a lot of that like sort of evilish sounding stuff, and there's a lot of sort of like discordant music in there, like not to the point where it's unlistenable, but it's sort of harder to get into. Like this is definitely, if not the most, one of the most like upbeat songs in the entire game.
Definitely.
And it's fun to listen to. I really enjoy this piece for sort of like the levity and the spirit of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I really actually found it very fascinating sound-wise to hear what sounded like sampled piano runs in there. The that almost sounded like a sample. So I did a little digging to try to see if I could find out some information about the Virtual Boy sound, because I really didn't know much about it. I always thought it was just like a beefed up Game Boy.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of is. It has 5 wave channels and then a noise channel. Channels 1 through 4 are like standard wave channels, and then channel 5 has all the functionality of the standard wave channels 1 through 4, but in addition to that also has support for frequency sweep and modulation. And there's a 6th channel as well, but that's just a noise generator, probably for like the drums. You know, the drum samples or drum sounds. But wave generation is performed by writing 32 PCM samples to VCU memory, and those samples are used to produce output waves. So most likely those sounds, those piano runs that we're hearing, were potentially PCM samples, possibly. I don't know. I mean, those
are pretty good quality PCM samples, if so.
That's what I was saying. Like, it definitely doesn't sound like something that would come out of like a beefed up Game Boy. It sounds like something that you'd hear on like a 32-bit system, even.
Right,
like definitely way lower quality, but still pretty impressive.
Yeah. And sort of like I said, I mean, considering the system that it was released on, that is a really good piece of music.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to bash the Virtual Boy.
No, you can. It sucks. No, okay. So I owned a Virtual Boy.
Really?
I did.
Damn.
At one point in time, I owned a Virtual Boy. I got it as a gift from a couple friends. I didn't play it. That's the thing. I owned Wario Land and Red Alert. No, Red Alert is the game they got me. I bought me Wario Land. Because I was like, I want a good game for this. And Wario Land is actually a really good game for this. It makes great use of the 3D effects that they were trying to go for, with lots of like crazy parallax scrolling with the red and black like colors going back and forth between like layers, like the front section, the back section. One really good comparison that I can make to it is if anyone's ever played Mutant Mudds or Mutant Mudds Deluxe, it's a virtual console game, or not a virtual console, but like you can get it on the 3DS basically, and I think you can get it on the PS4 as well. It's on a bunch of systems. It's on Steam. Definitely recommend checking it out if you like, action platform games like Wario. In that game, you're playing as like this kind of like nerdy kid, this like blonde-haired geeky kid with glasses, and he gets the help of his grandmother to like, you collect all these like different power-ups, and you could bounce back and forth between a weak gun and a powerful gun, or you could like hover. And the whole point, the reason why I'm bringing this up is there's a lot of like foreground and background stuff, which makes great use of the 3D on the 3DS.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing here with Wario Land on the Virtual Boy. It makes great use of putting Wario in the background or in the foreground and having him really stand out. The graphics here are great, despite the fact that they're completely red and black.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things that I thought was kind of cool about that system is it's sort of like the original Game Boy. You only really had green and black.
Right.
I mean, you can call it black and white, but
except that
green.
Didn't want to stab your eyes out.
Yeah, well,
with
and that's the thing. I mean, I feel like they gave you enough warnings with the Virtual Boy. Only play for 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah, right.
But this game, obviously, I've only ever touched a Virtual Boy once, and that was, I think the game that I played was like the tennis game, and that was back in high school. I had a friend who had a Virtual Boy, and like we were, holy crap. And then I played, and I was like,
"What is this?
I don't feel so well." But so having not played this game, it's interesting to see that it followed pretty much right up with the first Wario Land,
right?
Super Mario Land 3,
right?
And it's actually, so I had said that was the only sort of adventure platformer, action platformer, and the rest of them were all puzzle game, or puzzle platforming. This one is actually just like that. It's not a puzzle platformer. It is also an action adventure platformer.
Yeah, I believe you can like die in this one, unlike some of the later games, which we'll get to in a bit. But it kind of brings back the hat power-ups where you can get the dragon hat. The bull helmet comes back. There's an eagle hat that helps you like fly, and you can also like barge while you're in midair, which is really cool. Nice. So yeah, a lot of really cool power-ups. There's like mini games and stuff that you can play throughout the game as well, but it's really cool. I mean, I dig this game. I just wish that it wasn't on the Virtual Boy. I mean, they've been saying for years how people have really been saying for years how they really want Nintendo to re-release these games on like newer consoles with maybe like the 3D effect turned, maybe like recolorize the Wario Land games. But I feel like the Virtual Boy is such a sore spot for Nintendo. It was like one of their biggest failures, so they're probably never going to. You're never going to see these games.
That's really
ever show the light of day.
That's super unfortunate because, from what I'm seeing about this game, it looks like it would be just as fun as Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3.
Yeah.
And it's got the sort of the same sort of setup. Like you said, he has looks like the same power ups but more. So it's got an expanded power up roster from the previous game. and it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And considering that Nintendo, as much as I hate the 3D fad, Nintendo is doing fairly well with the implementing it into 3DS.
Sure.
And I mean, they'd have to sort of basically redo this game from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
If they did it and put it on the 3DS, it would probably go over pretty well.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it would do very well, actually. And there hasn't been a Wario game in a while, which we'll talk about a little later, but that's pretty much it for Virtual Boy Wario Land. It's a shame that it's on the system that it's on, but at the same time, it's kind of like a unique specimen to the Wario Land series. So we'll move into the next game, which is Wario Land 2 on the Game Boy Color, the first actual sequel. That came out in 1998, so quite a jump from the previous title of 1994. So, Wario Land 2, the track we're going to be listening to is End Assessment, and it's by Kozue Ishikawa.
It's me, Wario, and today you're gonna buy my book, How to Use Friends to Gain Treasure. Tell them all about it, guy I paid.
That's right. In the book, How to Use Friends to Gain Treasure, Wario teaches you the secret to tap into the hidden potential of your inner gold mine. Here's just a few short ideas from the book to help you get started.
No freebies. You buy the book.
But Wario, that's not what the publisher wants.
Okay, fine. Here's part of a chapter. First things first, find some gullible creatures to agree to help with a variety of problems. Either their princess was kidnapped, or their spaceship crash landed. You know, any old problem you can scrounge up. Then pretend to help them in exchange for currency. Eureka! Free treasure! Wahahaha!
Okay, it's not free. You had to jump through 8 worlds worth of madness just to save every single princess, helpless aliens, or whatever else you're trying to do.
Yeah. That's a bit like a job, huh? Okay, how about this one? Grab a friend! Preferably one who likes purple and who hates Mario and Luigi as much as I do. Wah. And then challenge them in a variety of sports and party games. All for the grand prize, a trophy, and bragging rights!
So, you're gonna play a competitive sport with people you normally affiliate with just to say you beat them? I don't know, Wario, that seems like a lot of work. And the trophy that you get is usually plastic.
Oh, ho, ho. Well then, this next tip will for sure be a quick get-rich scheme. Scour all newspapers for hidden legends and treasures, like the time I found out about a golden pyramid that was up for grabs. Or check out your local woodlands for treasures hidden in puzzle pieces.
So, you want people to just walk around aimlessly in the woods, or check out the classifieds? Did the publishers actually read this book before they agreed to publish it?
Nope, and that's the greatest tip of all. And get some schmucks to read a bunch of nonsense tips and drop Mario's name, and they'll be gung-ho to publish it. Wario wins again.
Well played, Wario. Well played.
That's right. And now you're fired. Buy my book now. How to Use Friends to Get Treasure. Now in bookstores and ebook shops while supplies last. Get it at your local Morton and Larry's bookstore, or buy it at Captain Syrup's website, www.captainsyrup.com. Now have a rotten day.
Hey, and that was the end assessment track from Wario Land 2 on the Game Boy Color from 1998, composed by Kozue Ishikawa.
Yes, this track, very, very happy, very fun for a Wario game. Again, very similar to what we talked about before. You know, it's got that bouncy cadence that Mario games typically have to it. A lot of these types of tracks that sound this way on Wario games are typically the end tracks, like the, you did it sort of thing.
Yes.
And meanwhile, the music throughout the rest of the game is kind of dirty, kind of grimy, very similar to Wario himself.
Yeah. Yeah, no, a lot of the tracks throughout the game are a bit lower. The thing that I would point out is this track and a lot of the other sort of ending or credit themes, they use a lot more high pitch notes.
Yeah,
which brings out this brightness of like, hey, you finished a game, you did really good,
like a cheery kind of tone to it. Yeah. Well, it's not too cheery for Wario as far as the plot of this game. This game takes a pretty huge step away from the previous games in the series, which were more like action platform romps, I guess you could say. This takes on a more like puzzle aspect to it. So the game starts off, you have Captain Syrup's cohorts breaking in. They're pirate goons. They're called spearmen. And they are kind of like, previous characters that were in, the other Wario Land games. And essentially what happens is they sneak into Wario's castle and they start just like wreaking havoc on everything. They just start destroying everything. The first thing they do is they take his treasure, and then they steal his pet, which is a pet hen, and its name is Hen. I don't know why you would. It's like naming a cat Kitty.
Cat, yeah.
Right. So they also set off his like alarm clock, and they leave the water running.
Yeah.
It's like, what else could they possibly do to this poor guy?
So it was funny because when we start the game, like the first thing that happens, they break in, they steal his money, and they turn the water on. The first thing that came to my mind was Home Alone. I was like, what are these guys, the wet bandits?
Yeah.
But it was just so funny. And then like to top it all off, they steal his alarm clock and they throw it in another room. So the game starts off with you having to like find the alarm clock and shut the alarm clock off. It's constantly going in the background.
Yeah,
that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a unique take on the series, and they gave you like a set of chores, I guess, to take on, where you have to figure out how to, they make that part of the gameplay where you have to figure out how to deal with the things that you're facing, the difficulties that you have. So, for example, turning off the water. So you have to like find the water faucet and then turn it off. So you have to like ram into it. Yep. And then also with the giant alarm clock, you've got to get to like the complete opposite side of where you were sleeping, and the whole time this like alarm clock's going off, and it's kind of annoying at first, but then after you set it off, or after you grab it, and I think you break it, if I recall, you like break it.
So.
Yeah. So at that point, Wario's just kind of like, what? He's like, wah! I'm gonna break everything, So at that point, he has to chase down Captain Syrup and her evil cohorts and get his pet back. So that is the game.
The game does a pretty good job of teaching you like how to play it in the beginning.
Yeah,
like there are some of these other games that things are not as intuitive, and they could have done well with either gradually introducing you to concepts or giving you a tutorial. Right. As much as I don't really like tutorials, some of these games would have benefited from that. But this one, it's like you have your jump and you have your dash, or what do you want to call it?
Butt blast or butt bomb.
Yeah. And
butt stomp.
Yeah,
if you will.
and the things that you have to do are like they're in line with that, and they sort of show you where things are, like the getting caught in the bubble thing, when you're underwater. Like you have to use that to get through certain areas, and they sort of give you a taste of what it is before you actually have to like really use it to solve a puzzle, and that's clever. Like this was a really fun game.
Yeah, no, I was digging this one, and it was a nice kind of in-betweener until they kind of went off the deep end with Wario Land 3, which we'll get into in a little bit. Wario Land 2 felt like kind of an in-betweener in the sense that it wasn't quite just like a straightforward action platform game. There was a lot more puzzle aspects to it. Like, for example, with that bubble that you were talking about, Wario gets trapped in a bubble, and then he's got to like move left or move right to kind of navigate himself. But there's like all these blocks that are stopping you from being able to do that. So you've got to kind of break these blocks to kind of set up a path that you can take with the bubble when you go back down. So it was a lot of fun. We were really having a blast playing through this. But it's one of those things where the game doesn't really like. Initially they'll kind of let you be the boss of learning how to play the game on your own. So you're not really frustrated with dealing with the difficult controls or anything like that. It's all fairly simplistic. So I thought it was quite well done. Yeah,
no, definitely, and especially because this departed from any of the other Wario games that they've done before. As you said, this is more of a puzzle-based game. So for one, Wario doesn't necessarily die. I think they took away the hearts, and it's all just based off of coins. Or I could be wrong on that one.
Yeah. There's no health, if I recall, in this one.
Yeah.
So it's essentially like how you can like learn from your mistakes to beat the level. So I didn't like the fact that you couldn't die. I kind of feel like I wanted to be defeated so that way I can kind of pick up from where I left off instead of just kind of doing the same thing over and over again until I got it right. I don't know. Maybe that was like Nintendo's shtick where they just really wanted people to like learn from their mistakes a different way. Yeah. So it's an interesting way to develop a game. It's definitely different, but I kind of wanted to just fail and die and start over at the beginning of the level because you kind of are like beating your head against the wall at points.
Yeah, and especially like if you have to go back, sometimes you don't think to go back. So if you were to die and go back, it's like, oh, I forgot about that thing.
Right. And you're going to see a lot of that in the third game, which we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes.
But this was also the one where, so in the other games, it was all like sort of Wario's hat was where everything came from.
The powers, right.
And in this one, it's like conditions. Like your Wario, or I guess they call him Bubble Wario when he's in the bubble. Things happen to Wario that change his condition and how he interacts with the world, and you have to use that to solve the puzzles.
Yeah, there's a little less than that in the second game. But yeah, the third game kind of takes everything that the second game did and bumps it up to a whole nother level. My first experience with Wario, I kind of wanted to touch on this, was in the issue of Nintendo Power. It was issue 44. It was released in January of '93. And this was part of like the Mario comic strips that they would do in Nintendo Power.
Yes,
I don't know if you remember those, yeah? There were two comics that I remember very fondly for Wario. One was Mario vs. Wario, and the second was Mario vs. Wario, the Birthday Bash. That was released in January of '94 in issue 56, in case anybody wants to read it. You can check it out online. They're also part of, I believe, there's like a Mario Adventures comic that was reprinted, and you can get it there too. Definitely recommended. Those Mario comics from Nintendo Power were great. But they introduced Wario, and that was my first exposure to Wario. I didn't know that he was in any of the games until I played, Mario Land 2 all those years later. But the first comic, Mario vs. Wario, is actually based on Super Mario Land 2 6 Golden Coins. It has like a lot of the enemies that you would face off against, like the pigs and all sorts of stuff like that. So that one was kind of interesting because you kind of saw a different side to Wario. Like, he used to call Mario a bully, which is like, wait a minute, Wario, you're the bully. Like, and so Mario, it's just like, he's so Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And he's just like, ha, nah. Like, or like, wah, nah. So he convinces Wario that he shouldn't hold grudges. And then they just play cowboys. That's it. Mario immediately is like, oh, I'm the sheriff. And he starts, hitting Wario with his gun, and Wario starts screaming that he's going to get his revenge. So that's the first comic that he was in. The second comic was probably a little bit more my favorite as far as like the Mario versus Wario series, and that was Mario and Wario receive an invitation to Princess Toadstool's birthday, and so they're trying to figure out what to get her, and then they find out that there's this Samus doll that is like super chibi and super cute, and I always saw this Samus doll in the window in the comic strip, and I was like, oh man, that'd be so cool to own. Like, I wish somebody actually made that. Like, that'd be awesome. It was really, really super cute. Like, totally chibi'd out Samus Aran, and it was super awesome. But they're like, oh, okay, we're gonna get her. You know, both Mario and Wario are like, we're gonna get her that for her birthday. Like, she'll love us the best or whatever. So then Wario finds out the doll's sold out. Then the clerk finds out that it was bought. The clerk tells him, like, he kind of beats it out of him, like, that a man with a big black mustache bought it. And so he's like, oh, it was definitely Mario, absolutely. So instead, he buys something that is kind of like a similar shape, and he buys a Jack-in-the-Box, and he wraps it to look identical. He makes the guy wrap it to look like identical, like the package that Mario supposedly bought.
Yeah.
And so then Mario and Wario are just like swapping the presents, like, you know, switching back and forth. And the whole point of the thing is, you think that Mario bought the gift, and you're like waiting for the punchline, like, okay, who got her the Samus doll? And then you end up finding out that they both bought Jack-in-the-Boxes for her, and that it was Luigi that bought the Samus doll. So Princess Toadstool gives Luigi a kiss, and then Mario and Wario are like, you know, so it's super cute and fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, those comic strips were great. They had a whole like Mario World series that they did as well, and they were like riveting. Like, I remember like going from issue to issue and being like, oh my god, I wonder what's gonna happen. Like, it was just so super exciting. All right, sorry, I'm like totally geeking out.
No, that's fine. I didn't get a lot of the Nintendo Powers when I was a kid, but I do remember the ones that I got. I loved.
Cool.
The comics were awesome.
Absolutely.
But real quick, speaking of comics with Mario and Wario, I was doing some investigating into Wario earlier in the week, and one of the more interesting things that I found was in Germany. Are you aware of the unofficial or non-canon creation of Wario?
No.
So there's a comic strip in Club Nintendo in one of the German releases where Mario was working with Dr. Light, and they were trying to. Dr. Light was trying to cure Mario's pixelated look. For
Dr. Light, like Mega Man?
Mega Man's Dr. Light. Literally Dr. Light.
Okay.
And they wanted to cure Mario's pixelated look and make him look like the rest of the characters in the comic.
Okay.
And in doing so, like, he put this device on his head, and what ended up coming out of that was Wario. And he just, from there, creates havoc. And it's like Mario's evil side.
Right.
I mean, it's not canon by any means.
Sure.
Nintendo does not, like...
No.
Doesn't recognize it.
Absolutely
It was just so funny.
That's hilarious.
Particularly because of the fact that it was like Mario and Dr. Light. Like,
it's
a Nintendo. It's not a Nintendo property. It's a Capcom property.
Right.
But it was used on the NES.
That's funny. I never knew that. Huh. Let's get back into it. Wario Land 3 on the Game Boy Color. This came out in 2000, and this was Out of the Woods. This is the day version of that track, and it's by Kozue Ishikawa and Ryoji Yoshitomi. Alright, welcome back. That was Wario Land 3 for the Game Boy Color, the 2000 release. Very late for the Game Boy Color. Out of the Woods Day was the track, and that was by Kozue Ishikawa and Ryoji Yoshitomi. So, Wario Land 3, definitely, in my opinion, the black sheep of the bunch. This is a fever dream of a game.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah. So first off the track, what do you think of it?
The track itself was actually it was fairly upbeat. It reminds me a lot of Wario himself. There's a I don't really know how to describe this other than saying like there's a sort of a nasally quality to the melody. You know what I mean?
No,
which sounds a lot like Wario's like voice.
Yeah. I was gonna say farty.
Ah!
It's got that very like farty like.
Yeah, that sounds right.
but I like your nasally approach as well because it's very focused on Wario, and that's the whole point of this episode. It's very like I can picture. You know what I can picture? I can picture Wario walking around in the game
singing that song.
Summing,
yes.
You know, so that's what I think would be the thing. So in this game, you're facing off against Rudy the Clown. He is the antagonist. Essentially what happens is Wario's flying his plane over the, I don't know, Amazon. And it crashes. Then you end up finding this music box in this cave. And you check it out, you're looking at it, you're like, what the heck is this thing? And then he gets sucked in to the music box. And there's like this like Oz-like figure, this Oz, like Wizard of Oz kind of character that appears in the background. They're very ominous, very creepy, and they end up basically saying like, "Oh, do you want treasure? Well, you got to come in and help me find my magic powers," or whatever. So you have to like get his magic powers that's in 5 different music boxes and return them to him. And the whole thing, I think when we were playing this, you said that the whole thing was very like, I'm not the bad guy sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
when he's talking to the face in the background.
Right, yeah.
It's one of those... I'm probably not the only person to think it, but like as he's talking, it's just like, oh, like it's obvious that this guy who claims to have been, I forget what he claimed to be, but he claimed to like have been cursed and sealed away for whatever reason. And I was like, yeah, you're probably actually the bad guy, and you're just using Wario.
You called it. This game is just, it again takes on the more puzzle platform aspect to it. At times it's very frustrating because you're kind of, again, beating your head against the wall trying to figure out what to do. I remember one of the really frustrating parts was there's these zombie characters that you come across in one of the levels. Oh, yeah. And the zombie keeps puking on you and you end up turning into a zombie, and the only way you can stop turning into a zombie is if you go under the lamppost, and that turns you back into a normal Wario. The whole point of the game is to try to like unlock your powers. So you're going through the game to try to reclaim like your normal abilities. So as you're playing through each level, you're like, oh, okay, I have to go back and do this, or I have to go back and do that. And you're not able to do it the first playthrough, so you've got to like play basically the entire game levels like 3 or 4 times.
And there's 2 versions of every level too,
right. Yeah, there's a day version and a night version, so it becomes very plotting, if you will. It's not a bad game. It's just they leave a lot up for interpretation, so you're not really sure what to do because you're never dying in the game. Right. You're just like getting lit on fire by random fire things multiple times, running all over, the level, and then finally you get doused out, or you stop being lit on fire, and then you go back to the same spot and you get lit on fire again. So it's just like it. If you don't know what you're doing the first time around when you're playing it and you don't have a lot of patience, it can get very frustrating.
Yeah, I would say that probably the most frustrating thing that I found was like if you get used to what you can do, especially at the beginning of the game in Wario Land 2. Yeah. Like you have the ground pound, you have these things, and then at the beginning of this game, you don't have them. Right. And while I'm used to many like Metroidvania type games where, like especially Metroid, where you start off like with these powers and then you almost immediately lose them. Right. Like there's an explanation as to why that happens, but like one of the most classic Wario things aside from farting is sort of like his butt pound. Right, the ground pound. And that's something that you actually unlock later as I was reading, and I was just very confused. I'm like, why can't I ground pound to get through these blocks?
Yeah. It reminds me actually quite a bit of the Shantae series, where you're going through and you'll see things that you can't get to, but you know that you'll have to eventually go back to it. So you got to kind of make a mental note to do that. But the thing that's different about this game, this has more in common with, I'd say, the later Shantae games like Shantae Half Genie Hero or Shantae and the Pirate's Curse, where you're not playing through one giant world. Instead, worlds are kind of broken up into like sections.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, this is more in line with like, I'd say Half Genie Hero more than anything, just because you're going through level by level in each world, kind of like Mario World in a way, where like there's a world hub and then you're kind of moving between the worlds. But what's really interesting is that you'll use items that you find in these treasure boxes that Wario finds, and you'll unlock more portions of the levels that you can go through. Like in one, you find an axe, you use the axe to chop a tree down in the main world, and then when that happens automatically, the next level is set up, and then you can move on to the next level. So there's just a lot of going back and forth between levels. Like, do I use this here? Do I not use this? What do I do? How do I get there? How do I do this? You're going to encounter platforms and locations and areas where you can't do anything.
Right.
And so that's like, that gets really frustrating if you're more used to like a more action platformy, like linear adventure, and something that's less, I would say, exploratory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, after that first level, it opens up, like there's two different places you can go.
Yep.
It's not terrible, but
No.
it is definitely a little bit confusing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this would be, I would say, if Wario had a Metroidvania, Egavania, whatever you want to call it, I would say that this would be as close as you can get to it. So definitely a late release in the Game Boy Color. The game looks gorgeous. It is a very pretty game, visually speaking.
Yeah.
Right up there with, I would say, like Shantae, like the first Shantae game on the Game Boy Color. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about the composer already. Kozue Ishikawa worked on Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, and also Ryoji Yoshitomi. So we don't really have to talk about them. So we may as well move into the next track. So what do we have next?
Next up is Wario Land 4, the next year, actually, 2001, on the Game Boy Advance. The track is Hall of Hieroglyphs, composed by Ryoji Yoshitomi. Right, that was from Wario Land 4 in 2001 on the Game Boy Advance, The Hall of Hieroglyphs by Ryoji Yoshitomi.
Yes, it was. This one sounded like something you hear at a baseball game, didn't it? Those organs.
Yes, it had like that organ, like the da almost. My first thought was actually kind of like a game show.
Yeah, game show.
It almost seemed to sound like something you'd hear on The Price is Right or something like that.
Yep. I really felt like sound-wise, they really nailed it with the instrumentation here. The drums sound very, very soft but very padded, but at the same time very strong sounding. And you've got these fantastic organs that come in that roll throughout the entire track. There's also like different style organs that play in the background, the dun 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 dun, and then you've got the lead kind of kicks in, dun dun, and it's like a rocking kind of vibe to it, but at the same time it's like almost like we were talking about, like a baseball game kind of sound to it, or like a jazz kind of thing.
I was thinking like jazz or swing.
Yeah, like a swing jazz.
Based on like the beat and the way that everything progressed.
Yep, definitely. And those drums were definitely like jazz style drums.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so the tones and the instrumentation that they used here are very impressive for the Game Boy Advance. A lot of Game Boy Advance music, which we've talked about on the podcast before, is very not good. It's very harsh sounding, very rough along the edges, very brash, brittle, and kind of like intense. And it's very harsh tones. Whereas this sounds almost like sample quality. I would say, like they sampled those instruments instead of like used the internal sound driver built into the system. So pretty interesting stuff audibly wise for the Game Boy Advance. I haven't heard anything that sounds like this. Maybe since like when Jake Kaufman was doing some work on the Game Boy Advance for like some of the racing games like the Carnage and some of the stuff that he was doing on the Game Boy Advance was similar to that. Manfred Linzner, that's another one, very good composer that we've covered before. I think we did on the Shoot 'em Ups 2 episode where we covered his Iridian 2 track on the Game Boy Advance, which again, same thing, just the instrumentation there is really strong, very solid. And so it's nice to see more of that in the form of Wario Land 4.
I'm trying to think back on the Game Boy Advance games that I've played to try to recount what the music sounded like, and I'm realizing I don't think I really did much with the Game Boy Advance. I can recall playing Fire Red and Castlevania games.
Yep, and the Castlevania games, as well as pretty much anything that Konami and Capcom were putting out. All the tones were very harsh sounding, very it just like bleeds through the sound, and it makes it sound very distorted, very rough. A lot of the music is sequenced as well, so it's very hard to pull out of the system. That's one of the reasons why you're not going to hear let me rephrase this. You're not going to hear much music from the Warioware series. Right around this time, Nintendo was deciding that they were going to kind of bring in a new series that was, it's kind of like minigame-ish, but at the same time it's almost like Twitch-style gameplay or ADD-style gameplay, and a lot of fun, and that's the Warioware series. And the whole reason why they chose Wario is just because he's a silly guy. Yeah. But Wario Land 4 is a game where Wario's just hanging out. He's reading the newspaper, probably, I don't know, checking out the classified section most likely. And he finds an article about a pyramid that was found in the jungle. So there's a legend that the pyramid is housing someone named Princess Shokora, who's the ruler of that pyramid. And Shokora was cursed by a person called the Golden Diva. And so Wario jumps into his Wario car, which I guess is the giant Cadillac that he drives around, and ends up going to the pyramid. Just waltzes in, He finds a black cat, and he starts chasing it. And when he does, he gets stuck inside the pyramid at some point, falls down, and gets locked in the pyramid. And so he's essentially just like... The cat ends up becoming like his helper for a beginning portion of the game, and it turns out that the cat is Princess Shokora. So we were talking earlier in the podcast about Wario having a female kind of like mirror image, like princess, and that would actually be, now that we're discovering this, it would actually be Princess Shokora. This is one of the few games that we weren't able to play just because neither of us owned a copy of it, and we just didn't have access to it immediately. So Princess Shokora is pretty interesting. First off, her name is based on the French word, or the Japanese approximation of the French word chocolat, or chocolate. So that's how you kind of pronounce her name. But she got 4 different forms depending on how many treasure chests you get throughout the game. So if you get 1 or no treasure chests, then she appears as like a young, like toddler, like a brat. And then if you get 2 to 5, Shokora appears as a like larger, more like unattractive, like Wario. She looks just like Wario. She has a big nose.
Yeah, the big red nose.
Big red, honking nose, and looks just like Wario. So it's pretty funny. The third form is a more like teenage form. She's more like very young looking, very like thin looking, and more like a teenage, like 16-year-old girl or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the final form is the true princess version, who's a little bit older, a little bit more wiser, more mature. Actually looks a little bit different than what you're used to seeing in the Mario universe as far as princesses go. She's got shorter hair and a little bit, more of like a pointier nose. And no matter which version you find, Princess Chakra kisses Wario on the cheek at the end of the game, says, "Thank you, Wario," and that's pretty much the end of the game. So one of these versions that you find will entertain you, I'm sure, to no end. But it kind of makes you want to find out which is the true form of the princess as you go through.
Yeah, go back and play the game again.
Yeah.
To try to get one of the better forms.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Especially considering so in I think it was Wario Land 2, we mentioned that depending on how many coins you got, Wario's house or domicile that he gets at the end is either anything from a birdhouse to I think a cabin,
right,
to a castle to the planet.
Right.
So this sort of follows that same sort of premise.
Yeah, it's kind of a throwback gameplay wise as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is more of like a pretty standard action platform type game. It's a little bit less focused on, they're less focused on making a game where you can't die. Now you have like a life bar, you have like a heart meter, so you can end up dying in this one, which is good in my opinion. I think this is a more like stronger return to form. Graphics here are phenomenal, really great stuff.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah, really gorgeous game, 2D, side scrolling, especially for that early in the Game Boy Advance's life cycle. This was a 2001 release, and just a year before that, we saw the transition from Game Boy Color to this. So they really amped up their game, and it shows here. So Ryoji Yoshitomi again, did this soundtrack as well as some of the ones that we talked about a little bit earlier, Wario Land 3, and also worked on Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3.
Yep.
So good stuff. So that's Wario Land 4. So now we kind of move into the 3D realm. This is Wario World for the Gamecube, and this came out in 2003, 2 years later. This is Greenhorn Forest, and it's by Norio Hanazawa and Minako Hermano, and we'll tell you why it's by those two in just a minute. Alright, welcome back. That was Wario World. 2003's release on the Gamecube. That was Greenhorn Forest, one of the first levels that you hear. And that was Norio Hanazawa and Minako Hermano. So you're probably wondering, why Norio Hanazawa? Well, this was a Treasure-developed game. And, one of the reasons why is, I guess Nintendo and Treasure kind of headed off after they worked together on Sin and Punishment. for the N64. So they wanted to keep it going, so they ended up working on this game, Wario World, for the GameCube, and this is an exclusive title for that system. It was essentially like a beat-em-up, but also kind of a platformer as well. It's pretty cool. I mean, you spent a lot of time with it. What did you think of it?
I thought it was really cool especially for a Wario game. And I mean, that's not to downplay Wario at all.
Sure.
I know that phrase, like, it was good for this.
Yeah.
is usually like backhanded, but it was a lot of fun. Like, the GameCube is another Nintendo system that I didn't really get as much time with as I sort of wish I could have. Going back, playing games either on the Wii, because it can play GameCube games, or like on other people's GameCubes. There's a lot of really good games for that system. And this was one that I had never seen, and I literally want to play more of this game.
Yeah.
The first world, which, as you said, is the world that this song comes from, really sort of sets the tone. Like, it starts off with Wario, like, not really kind of giving a crap, doing his own thing, and then finding out that these spritelings are in need of his help, and he's just like,
there's always something in need of his help.
Yeah, and I mean, it really seems like he's not going to bother, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, there's treasure, and he's, oh, well, if there's treasure, sure,
yeah, it's a pretty common occurrence with Wario.
I mean, that's just sort of like his MO.
Right.
But going back to like the action adventure platforming thing was a lot of fun, and especially in a 3D realm, like running around and seeing sort of his different abilities. I didn't get to play around with whatever the one where he opens his mouth really wide is.
Right.
I don't know what that does.
Yeah.
But his dash, his punch, and other stuff. It's really interesting, and the enemy design was really neat too. Like, there's these little like dragon things that are all over the place. I think they call them Magons.
Okay.
Magon. Their design is really neat. Like, they're almost kind of cute. Like, they've got these giant hands, this giant head, this tiny body.
Yeah, everything kind of is in this game, in this series as well. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it is, after all, still a kid's game. It is an everything title. So as far as the ranking or the rating, so that does make sense. I really dug the gameplay in this. It was definitely a step in the right direction for what, in my opinion, like a proper evolution of a platformer would be if it was to merge with a beat 'em up.
Yeah.
So you've got these 2D levels that you can kind of, go through, like 2.5D, but Wario himself is completely 3D rendered in the sense, like 2.5. It's not really 2.5D, it's more like the camera perspective's 2.5D, but Wario can move all over the level, very similar to like Final Fight or right,
like
exactly, yeah. And you've got like a lot of like really funny moves, like wrestling moves and the biting move and like all those types of moves that we were talking about. So I thought that it was pretty cool. I agree that I wanted to spend more time with this one. It definitely was something that I could see myself like playing through and really enjoying. So music-wise, what did you think of it?
That track as well is really nice.
It's hummable, super hummable.
It's super hummable. It's also, like we were talking, some of the other tracks sounded sort of like jazzy or swingy.
Yep.
This one, I'd say, sort of tops the list so far in the fact that like it has this very obvious saxophone synth.
Oh yeah,
and I mean saxophone is like the jazz instrument.
Sure.
And the feel of that song was super jazzy. I don't know if I would say it felt like Wario per se, but that may be due to a number of other things with the development of the game and where the composers came from.
Yeah, that's true.
But it definitely fit the level. Like whether or not it felt like a Wario song, the atmosphere of the level and the way that things were going, I definitely found myself enjoying what I was hearing as well as what I was doing.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I agree. I would say, though, that I do feel that this is a Wario track just because of those, as you said, those saxophones or those... I wasn't going to say saxophones. I was going to say like maybe like a deeper like brass instrument, like something maybe a little like bassier sounding. Those it's just it's not quite saxophone. I would say saxophone's a little higher registered. This sounded like a bassoon or maybe something like that.
That's fair. I mean, I would probably actually put it as a
sousaphone.
No, definitely not a sousaphone. That is on par with a tuba.
Yeah.
But I might put it more at like a baritone saxophone or a tenor saxophone.
Yeah,
as opposed to the saxophone that most people are familiar with, I think, is an alto saxophone.
Right, yep.
But one of the bigger saxophones that gets you a deeper sound. And I mean, those are things that I don't think of when I talk because I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Everybody else does. But yeah, no, it was definitely 80%. It's not what you would normally hear as a saxophone.
Right.
But it's a lot of fun too. Like that's like it's sort of like a punchy song.
Right,
gets
I agree.
Kind of going.
It's a great starter track too for the game. It really kicks off this vibe and this feeling like, okay, you're gonna have fun with this game. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I really dig those like random piano licks that kind of come in, the dun 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 dun. It kind of brings this like nice flow to the song. It kind of gives it a nice like warm ambiance that you wouldn't normally get if you were listening to like some of the Game Boy Color stuff. Which is more like it's more like evil and sinister, but also playful and whimsical at the same time. Whereas this, I think, is just having fun.
Yeah.
Like it's having fun, but it's doing it in a bad style, if that makes any sense. So. But yeah, and this game is cool too because you can link it with the Game Boy Advance with the Warioware game.
Oh yes.
And you can unlock like different mini games and stuff. Like the more you play, the whole purpose of the game is to collect these like red diamonds in each level. But if you collect treasure in the various level, the treasure can be converted over to or transferred over to the Warioware games with the Game Boy Advance link cable. So it's pretty cool. They were really trying to hammer home that idea. You also get garlic in this game. That's what restores your life, and that's garlic has always been for Wario. Like that's his like lifeblood. You know what I mean? Like that's what It's part of his sinister, awful demeanor that you're just like, really, dude? You're gonna like eat garlic like a lot?
I mean, clearly he's Italian. That's what we do.
That's true. That's true.
But it's funny because it wasn't until this game that I realized that garlic was actually a thing for him.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember like hearing about him and garlic being in the same room or something.
Right.
But like in this game, like they specifically state, and like it's a lot more obvious because it's in 3D, and it's like, oh hey, that's a clove of garlic.
Right.
And then if you go back and you like actually look through the manual or whatever for the other games, that's actually what's in. It's in a lot of the other games, like the bottles in Wario Land for the Virtual Boy and the first Wario Land.
Right.
The bottles that they don't give you a special power, but they take you out from being mini Wario.
Mm-hmm.
They're technically garlic bottles.
Right.
Didn't know that until I looked at it, but.
Yep.
It definitely makes it clear that garlic is his thing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Minako Hermano and Norio Hanazawa. So, Minako Hermano is actually, for the most part, a Nintendo composer, starting with Link's Awakening on the Game Boy way back in 1993. Also, Super Metroid was the music composer on that. They've done quite a bit, mostly with Wario World, Wario games, Donkey Kong Country, Tropical Freeze. Worked on some of the music for that along with David Wise. Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D. Yeah. I think mostly credited on Tropical Freeze for the work that she did. I believe this is a female composer, by the way, Minako Hermano. Donkey Kong Country Returns 3D that was Minako's jam right there. That was a big project for them, so definitely a really important title. But also did sound support on Tokyo Mirage Sessions Fire Emblem in 2016. And did a bunch of other games too, mostly for Nintendo, like Brain Age and Wii Play Motion, a lot of weird stuff like that. And of course, Super Smash Brothers, Super Smash Brothers Brawl to be specific.
Yes. Also can't forget Mario Tennis Ultra Smash.
Yes, absolutely. Tons of Nintendo stuff for Minako Hermano. What I'm thinking is Minako Hermano probably said, listen, to Norio Hanazawa, all right, dude, you're known for crazy, insane soundtracks. You gotta dial it back a bit. Let me play some Wario music. Let's get you on point. Norio Hanazawa started off in 1989 with Quarth, who he did sound design on that, and then Castlevania: The Adventure in 1989, Roller Games in 1990, and The Simpsons arcade game in 1991. Yes. Bucky O'Hare as well, and probably most infamously known for the games that he worked on when he left Konami. He did Gunstar Heroes in 93, Dynamite Headdy in 94, Alien Soldier in 95, Guardian Heroes in 96, Mischief Makers in 97, Bangai-O in 2000. I mean, just the list goes on and on. Astro Boy Omega Factor in 2003. His final game was Sin and Punishment, Star's successor in 2009. So, really fantastic, amazing composer. I know it's one of Ed's favorites. Norio Hanazawa is he writes these like insane tracks that just they come out of left field. They really show a lot of just noise, and these tracks are like beastly, in my opinion. And so when you hear most of Hanazawa's work, you kind of get a little intimidated, especially on his work on the Genesis. But here, he just kind of comes off as just having fun with this. You know, him and Minako Hermano probably definitely really gelled well together, and I think that this soundtrack is really top notch.
I would say they definitely did a great job together, because the music in that game is on
Good
point.
stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So let's move into Wario Master of Disguise on the 2007 DS release. This is Tiramisu Battle, and it's by Kenji Hikita.
Right, that was Wario Master of Disguise in 2007 on the DS. The track was Tiramisu Battle by Kenji Hikita.
Wow, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That was pretty freaking epic.
Yeah.
I would say right out of the gate, I was feeling a very Mega Man X vibe from it.
Yep, definitely.
And I will recant that in just a minute when I explain that it's the composer. We'll talk more about Kenji in a bit, but it's not Mega Man X that I was feeling, although it definitely had some of that feel to it. But actually F-Zero, because this guy did work on some of the F-Zero games. But that was incredibly driving. Yeah. And I think that tops the list so far.
I was feeling it, man. I was feeling it. Yeah, no, this is my jam right here. It was powerful synth rock metal. Yes. Like, just really guitar heavy, guitar driven. And, you know, it's a shame that I never picked this one up, because until I heard the soundtrack, I was like, you know, I mean, I had heard that this game, like, I remember reading reviews for this game when it came out, and, like, critics mostly panned the game. But now that I think about it, looking back on it, I don't think that, anyone was really saying that. They were more essentially just like, yeah, it's just, it's another Wario game, but like, if you like Wario games, why is that a big deal?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got to go back and check this one out, because this soundtrack alone is worth playing the game. It's really, really cool, especially tracks like this.
Yeah.
So tiramisu is not just a cake. It's also a villain as well. And a couple of the enemies are named after
Italian pastries.
Count
Cannoli.
And then Terror Misu, right? Yep. Who's actually a girl in the game who you meet in a volcano right before you enter a volcano. You meet a girl named Tiara Misu, who's actually a demon named Terror Misu. That is the character. That's I believe where this takes place. So you haven't played this game either, right?
No, not at all. But I will tell you, based on that song alone, I'd be interested in playing.
You can actually download this one on the Wii U as well, which
Really?
is pretty cool. So if you don't have a DS, or you don't want to go and try and track down an older game like this, you can download it on the Virtual Console on the Wii U. So cool.
I will have to take a look at that.
Yeah, pretty neat. Pretty good stuff. But yeah, as you were saying, Kenji Hikita worked on F-Zero Climax in 2004, as well as F-Zero GP Legend in 2003. Did music composition for those. So that's where you're hearing that music.
Yeah.
So.
Also did a lot of the GG series?
Yeah, there's a series called the GG series that they did as well. Not too familiar with that, but I mean, this series has easily at least like 10 to 12 entries in the series, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, so mostly I'm thinking is mostly a freelancer. I don't think works for Nintendo or anything like that. Probably did freelance work for the F-Zero games as well. Did F1 Pole Position 64 in 1997, so I'm sure that's got some awesome racing music as well. Formula Nippon in 1999, and Domokun no Fushigi Terubi in 2002 did music on that. And Arc the Lad Twilight of the Spirits, that's where you're getting that like RPG battle theme sound that you're getting on. So last game was GG Series Assault Buster in 2010 according to our records, so interesting. I'm gonna have to check those out. But yeah, Wario Master of Disguise, essentially you're putting on all these different costumes, different forms. That's what the Japanese version refers to them as. So you're using those instead of hats to take on all the enemies, and so it's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. And again, it kind of sticks with that more like Metroidvania kind of style or format, except I think this time around it's more in line with the platforming aspect. It's less about the puzzle, more about the platforming.
Yeah. I would say based on as well the fact that you're getting different like costumes and which give you different abilities. Maybe my Mega Man X feeling was a little bit spot on, because that seems to be what you're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know why this game didn't do too well.
I don't know.
It looks pretty fun.
If you could put Wario in any costume of your choosing, which would it be?
What was that one that I made for you for that? No, that's a broad question. There are so many different options. I mean, you talking about from the game or?
Yeah, like in this game, there's different kinds of costumes that you can put Wario in.
I think the Spark one looks really cool. He's got all this like spiked hair, and he is not on fire. He's covered in electricity.
Yeah, I would say I think it'd be kind of funny if you put him in a Mario costume and had him do Mario type things, because the Wario games really are so much different than the Mario games. I mean, they didn't start out that way. They started out more like Mario games.
Yeah.
But it'd be kind of neat if they did like a return to form where like they had him, go, try to do that. So
jumping on enemies, saving princesses.
Yeah. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think it'd also be cool if they threw in like Captain Syrup back in like a new game that they would come out with, like for a Wario game. Maybe have her. Maybe you could switch between her and Wario. That'd be kind of neat. Or like maybe she's like not just like a store clerk or whatever, like she is in like Shake It. Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, that's Master of Disguise. Unfortunately, neither of us have played it, but it looks really cool. So I want to check that out. But speaking of Shake It, let's go ahead and shake it. Wario Land Shake It in 2008 is the Wii release, and this is the Pirate Shop, and it's by Tomoya Tomita.
Welcome back. That was from Wario Land Shake It in 2008 on the Wii. That was the Pirate Shop track by Tomoya Tomita.
That's right. Wario Land Shake It is a really cool game for the Wii. A very underrated platformer, in my opinion. What do you think of this track? Super funky, right?
I was literally just going to say that the track itself is literally funky.
Funky fresh.
And, considering that Wario has a funk about him, that makes sense. Also considering that we were talking about jazz and swing earlier, funk is kind of like the natural evolution of those things in certain ways. So I thought it was really cool that they, as the game is evolving, the music is evolving in a similar fashion. Mm-hmm. And as far as the game itself goes, having seen it for the first time today, I'm probably going to pick it up. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
The music is great.
Yeah. Gameplay-wise, it's a 2D side-scrolling action platformer. No longer do you have like the digitized sprite look that you had in all the other Wario games, but it also isn't utilizing like the Wario World style, like 3D beat 'em up kind of atmosphere either. Instead, what we have is a flat 2D experience in levels that are just gorgeous, along with the art style is hand-drawn sprites, hand-drawn animated sprites. It's really fantastic. It was developed by a company called Goodfeel for Nintendo. Huh. Really beautiful stuff. I mean, just seeing it fluidly in motion, watching Wario like shake his rump when like right before you're about to go into the telescope. So the whole purpose of the game, just to kind of touch on the plot a little bit, is there's these creatures known as Murfles, and they are all being held captive and hostage by this evil bad guy whose name is the Shake King. And so he's imprisoned the queen of all the Murfles, the Queen Merelda? Merelda, right. So the Murfles are basically, all stuck except for one. There's one Murfle that is able to escape, and he goes and runs into Wario. And so the reason for that is Captain Syrup returns to this game, and she breaks into a museum and steals this globe, which holds this thing called the Shake Dimension. And so you access the Shake Dimension by looking into, or like jumping into this telescope from like the opposite end. So
you jump into the big end.
Right. So Wario's like shaking his booty while he's about to go into this world. The whole thing takes place across this globe, so you get to see like all different types of atmospheres and levels. You kind of start off on like a pirate ship, and then you kind of move on to like deserts and all sorts of different really cool locations. So it's a lot of fun. Really good game. It demands like big time skills when it comes to playing the game, in the sense that there's so much to do and there's so much to explore. They give you these different missions that you can take on for each level, and so it really demands a lot of like replayability. There's almost like a Twitch style aspect to it in terms of the gameplay, where like you've got to, once you get each Murfle that you saved them, in the stage, you're then timed at that point to get back to the beginning of the level. So in most cases, you've got to go into this pipe, and the pipe shoots you out. And Wario's like running at top speed, crashing through like bricks and walls and all sorts of stuff. And you've got to figure out the best way to get back, the fastest way, in order to get the best time. And that helps you unlock more treasures and all different sorts of stuff. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
if you hit any walls though, it like you stop with that speed. Like, you can turn you can turn back and forth while running and keep your speed. But as soon as you hit a wall, it's over. Yeah, it's really neat. And I mean, going back to sort of what you were saying about like when Wario enters the telescope, there's a lot of like subtle little things like that. Like that's sort of a bigger piece because like he's sort of close to the screen and it's sort of a limited thing, but in like sort of like a sprite animation thing, when you're getting into that machine that shoots you out, similarly, I'd imagine if there's any pipes that you have to go down into, like he sort of jumps up and dives into it head first, and then like wiggles his butt.
There's just a lot of love. Cool. There's a lot of love that's been presented in this game in terms of the visuals, so it's really cool to see. Even
the cutscenes.
Oh yeah,
they're like well animated anime type cutscenes.
Absolutely. I was going to say it's more on point with like a Saturday morning cartoon, but anime style, very similar to, we were talking about this when we were playing the game, the Kirby Right Back At You show, like the cartoon. Very similar to that in terms of the style and design of the characters. As far as the music itself goes, the composer said that he used Wario Land 4 as a inspiration when writing the music for the game. So Tomoyo Tomita, we've talked about on the podcast before on the Yoshi episode. Tomita worked quite a bit on that. Also did some stuff for Konami originally, stuff like Animaniacs did sound design in 1994. TMNT 3, The Manhattan Project for the NES. Lone Ranger in 91. Parodius in 90. Castlevania Dracula X. Sound design with several other Konami heavy hitters in 95, and then did sound direction for the Castlevania 64 games and Legacy of Darkness.
And Circle of the Moon.
Yep, and Circle of the Moon, Konami Crazy Racers. Later on followed it up with pretty much joining up with Nintendo, did work on Me Force, which we just played on the Halloween episode that Ed picked from, and then Battleground Z, Yoshi's Woolly World in 2015, which we talked about on the Yoshi episode. Last game was a port of that game, Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World, on 2017, and that went to the 3DS. So just a really fantastic composer. Minako Hermano is also credited for this, probably worked in terms of guidance or sound, maybe not necessarily composition, but since Wario Land 4 was used as an inspiration, I would imagine that Minako Hermano was part of that direction. So I really love this game. I really need to sit down and play through it some more. One little interesting tidbit that I found, because we've been kind of talking about this all throughout the episode. So I actually found a quote from the developers from Camelot. Camelot's the developers that worked on a lot of those like games that we were talking about earlier, like Mario Golf and Mario, a lot of like the Mario sports games, the Mario Tennis. This is an interview from Nintendo Power where they asked Hiroyuki Takahashi and Shugo Takahashi, who were two of the developers. And so Nintendo Power said, Mario Tennis also features Daisy, a character who hasn't been so popular. Shugo Takahashi said, we wanted to have a similar partner for Luigi, like how Mario and Princess Peach have one another. We asked Nintendo, and Nintendo suggested Daisy. And then as far as Wario and Waluigi go, Hiroyuki Takahashi said, we asked Nintendo about girlfriends for Wario and Waluigi too, but Mr. Miyamoto, meaning Shigeru Miyamoto, the creator of Mario, said that he didn't even want to see their girlfriends. That's pretty savage, man. That's harsh.
Terrible.
Yeah, that's rough. I found that in an interesting Kotaku article, so pretty messed up. But yeah, so I gotta say that it's really cool that they kind of like branched out the story to include more characters this time around with Wario Land Shake It. And again, nice to see, kind of a throwback to the previous earlier games with Captain Syrup. It's pretty cool. So you don't really see too many female antagonists. I think the only things the ones that I can think of off the top of my head are like the Dark Queen from Battletoads.
Oh, that's fair.
In terms of like, super evil, like lone antagonists. So it's cool. She's like kind of like skirts that line between bad and good, especially in this game, because she's helping you out. She's like giving you all these like different items and abilities. She lets you buy maps and stuff like that.
That was one of the first things I noticed, actually, because when she showed up, I thought she was going to be the antagonist, and then you know, the video kept playing, and it was actually this other guy.
Yeah,
and then she ends up helping you. Yeah.
Right, yeah. Yep. So that is almost going to do it. We have one more track for you. That kind of ends the Wario Land series. Unfortunately, no other games have been released to this day in late 2017. But Game & Wario is our final game that we're going to be talking about. It came out on the Wii U in 2013, and this is a track called Jimmy Lovin', and it's by a ton of composers, which we'll get into right after the break. Welcome back. That was our final track of the day, Game & Wario, that came out on the Wii U in 2013. The track was Jimmy Lovin', and that was by Yasuhisa Baba, Masanobu Matsunaga, Takeru Kanazaki, Hiroki Morishita, Sho Murakami, and Yoshito Sekigawa. Wow, a lot of composers on this one, but phenomenal track. What do you think of that?
That was
smooth.
Something else. Yeah, I mean, smooth was the first word that I said when I put my headphones down. I don't know what I would classify that as, but that was
baby making music right there.
Yeah, that's. I was actually trying to avoid using those words.
Nope.
But that's some bedroom music.
Yep.
Really, like, smooth is sort of the best word that I can think to describe it. It is really nice. I'm gonna play that for my wife when I get home.
Yeah. Yo, girl, listen to this track. Tell me what you think about it. Like,
the name of the track is Jimmy Lovin'.
Right,
so,
right.
It's somewhat implied, which is odd for a Nintendo game.
Yes.
They would even imply.
Jimmy Lovin' is one of the characters of the Warioware crew. Along with, he's kind of like a smooth dude. He's got these cool,
afro, right?
Yeah, the afro, the sunglasses. He's totally like stepping right out of the 70s. Whereas Wario himself is completely redesigned for these WarioWare games. I know this is the only one that we're playing for this, but the WarioWare series is much loved. It's a really fanatic, crazy series that has it mostly involves mini games and all these wacky characters that kind of host these mini games that you're playing through, and it's no different here. Just really taking advantage of the Wii U gamepad and also additional like Wii U like controllers that you can use. So really cool stuff. I haven't played this one personally, but I have played a lot of the WarioWare games. So if it's very similar to that, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I would imagine it probably is. One thing that I would point out about that song in particular, as compared to the rest of the WarioWare type games, I mean the games in the WarioWare games are generally very frantic.
Right.
And the music usually goes with that to either to try to screw you up or to get you in that mood of like, you got to do the thing, you got to do it now, and everything's crazy.
Yep.
And that definitely does not go with it. That was very relaxing.
Yep.
I'm curious as to the game that song goes with.
It's a very strong jazz track, you know, with elements of like Motown.
Yes.
And,
there you
like
go.
Motown funk, not quite funk, more like smooth jazz with Motown elements kind of peppered in. So it's I dig it. I like that type of music. It's all really cool to listen to, and you know, definitely gets you in the mood, if you know what I mean. Gets you in the mood to play some Wario games.
Oh yeah.
you get in bed with your loved one, snuggle up real close, put this track on, and then she looks at you into your eyes and she just goes, "Wah!" So the composers on this one, Yoshihito Sekigawa, also known as Yoshihito Hirano, he did work with Intelligent Systems, the development company, worked on a lot of the Advance Wars, Fire Emblem franchises. Nintendo Puzzle Collection in 2003 was his first game. His last game was Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentina. He did the full motion video sound effects on that one. Mostly has done like audio mastering and occasionally music. He did the music for Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Fantastic soundtrack. Great game too, yes. Sho Murakami is a sound composer. Again, works for Intelligent Systems. I believe they are a second party of Nintendo's now, or they've been for some time. Worked on Pushmo and Crashmo, which were fun little puzzle games. Stretchmo as well. In 2015, Paper Mario Color Splash, he was the sound director on, and again, Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentina in 2017. Did music composition on that, as well as Warioware DIY. That was his first game in 2009, where he did record contents. Not sure what that means, but cool. Hiroki Morishita, again, Intelligent Systems. All these guys, I believe, are Intelligent Systems composers. Worked on Warioware DIY in 2009 as his first game. His last game, Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentina. So a lot of these guys worked on similar franchises. I'm not really seeing too much else that they worked on. Same thing for Takeru Kanazaki, Masanobu Matsunaga, who did a lot of work in the Wario series, actually, the Warioware series. Smooth Moves, Touched, and Twisted, all those games, including the WarioWare Inc. Mega Party, so in 2003. For that one. Yasuhisa Baba, same thing, worked on, you know, all Intelligent Systems games. They've got a team going of really solid composers that are doing some really fantastic work. So it's
clearly,
nice
yeah. I mean, and a bunch of these guys worked on the same WarioWare games like Twisted Touch, Moves, and some other one, Snapped.
Yeah, there's so many WarioWare games. I just lost count. I mean, they're fun.
They are.
But I kind of feel like very similar to Bomberman. It's like if you've played one, you've played them all, kind of. So they're, in my opinion, they're not all worth owning, but owning one or two is not not wrong.
I will say the ones on the handheld systems are very much like that. Like if you played one on the DS, it's not very different from the others on the DS or even the 3DS.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got my Wii, or maybe not when I first got it, but when Smooth Moves came out for the Wii, I got that, and that was a totally different experience. For the obvious reason, you went from a handheld to the Wii, but the way that they implemented a lot of the motion controls
with
the
the Wiimote,
fed into a lot just some of the other ones. I believe I definitely haven't played Game & Wario, but I believe I've seen some of it being played, and there are a lot of interesting things that they do with like the gamepad and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. So that is it. That's going to do it for episode 104 with Wario. We talked about a lot of really cool stuff on this episode. We talked about some of the Wario Land games on some really obscure systems like the Virtual Boy. We talked about some puzzle games like Wario Woods and Wario Blast. Covered almost every single game in the Wario Land universe as well. And we kind of ended on a smooth note with Game and Wario. So I don't know. Do you have a favorite track from everything that we've played so far?
Tiramisu Battle.
Really? Okay.
I mean, the Pirate Shop was really nice. I liked the funk aspect of it. Jimmy Levin, as you said, was smooth, and that brought some vocals into it and really upped the game of what they were doing with the music here. But based on like the games that I've played, the games that I liked, when the first thing that hit me was sort of like the Mega Man X thing. It immediately became a favorite.
Yeah. Yeah, I it's tough. I'm torn because a lot of these tracks are really good. I will say that while I really enjoyed this Master of Disguise track, the Tiramisu battle, it's not my favorite, believe it or not. I know everyone's kind of like, no, that's impossible, like Darth Vader style. But it's good, but it wasn't memorable to me. Like, I didn't walk away from it going like, humming it.
That's fair.
And that's the thing, is like, it was good in the moment, but as soon as it was gone from my memory, I was like, all right, now what? Whereas the Wario's Woods track is actually probably going to be my favorite. I don't know what it is about that Wario Woods track, but something about it's just very like fun and very memorable, and it really makes you kind of perk up and smile.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that I think is going to be my pick, is that Wario's Woods track.
I will give you that, and I will also say that if you asked me to hum the Tiramisu battle music, I could not do that for you right now.
Right.
But I will say that out of all the tracks that we've played here, that track makes me want to go and get that game.
Yeah, I agree.
And while I also want to get Shake It, the song that we played isn't what made me want to go get it. Like, actually seeing it,
right,
absolutely makes me want to get it. So
yeah,
coming out of this, there are 2 games I'm going to be buying apparently.
Yeah. I'd say Wario Land 4 for the Game Boy Advance is probably going to be pretty high on my list. That one I want to pick up next, definitely.
That does look cool.
And also Master of Disguise. I'd like to pick that one up as well. And Wario's Woods, I had a lot of fun with it. It was really cool. It was a fun experience. So I'll definitely be picking that up. So we want to thank Justin again for coming on the show and taking up the guest co-host spot while Ed is gone. So again, thank you so much, Justin, for that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
And Justin's on the Facebook group as well, so feel free to ask him any questions, or we want to hear from you guys. Like, what was your favorite track of this episode? Have you played any of these Wario games? Are any of them your favorite? Do you have any particular in mind? Are you kind of bummed we didn't play a specific track from one of these games? Let us know in the comments on facebook.com/groups/PixelTunesRadio. Best way to reach us and to kind of engage with conversation with fellow gamers and to talk about video games and video game music. You can also check out all episodes on PixelTunesRadio.com, as well as YouTube.com/Dongled, which is my channel, and that's where you can check out Dude You Haven't Played This Game, Gaming Linguistics, as well as Noob Repair, and a bunch of other shows that I do on that channel too. So, and of course, every version of Pixel Tunes Radio for the video portion of that episode is up as well on that YouTube channel as well. So definitely check that out. You can get us at Twitter at PixelTunesRadio. Justin, you have a Twitter as well. What's that?
I believe I'm at Shock83J16.
Okay, cool. And then I am at DYHPTG, which is the call letters of the show Dude You Haven't Played This Game, which I do on YouTube. You could also check out Ed on his Twitter account, which is at Runer9. You'll find us one way or the other. At PixelTunes Radio is the best way to find us. Coming up next episode, on episode 105, we're going to have Justin come back, and also we're going to be joined by Nico, a.k.a. the Wee Guy, and he's going to return to us with some Super NES and Super Famicom deep cuts. So some really kind of, semi-obscure stuff, tracks that you wouldn't normally hear. We're going to be avoiding like the Marios, the Zeldas, that sort of stuff. But we're going to try to focus on giving you guys some really top-notch music. So stay tuned for that. That'll be out in 2 weeks. And again, thanks so much for listening to Pixel Tunes Radio.